24 minutes in the game.
Yeah, Manny, Manny is he's such a pleaser. He wants to do so well. I think sometimes he can get in his own way from the standpoint of that. We've talked about it before. Like we try to do as much thinking and preparation before in practice. So when you get to the game, because the game of basketball is read react, and if you're thinking or well, what if I do this and if I do that, then I can't. And it's like, well, 2 plays have just happened by the time you're trying to do all of that stuff. So I think sometimes Manny gets caught up in that because he's trying to do such a good job. He doesn't want to do just a good job for the coaches. He wants to do such a good job for his teammates. And so it was good to see him have some success because he had missed some easy shots in that game, to be quite honest with you. But he was able to regroup, bounce back. We've got to get some consistency from that position. Hopefully Sam coming back and give us a little bit more depth there as well. But Manny he's a worker. He's a great kid, and he wants to do well. So when he doesn't have success, you feel for him. But then when he does, like he did the other night, it can give us a nice shot in the arm, and we're gonna need it going forward.
I just finished broadcasting the women's basketball game yesterday, and they played Harris Stowe. And as we're wrapping up the broadcast, doing our post game with Rika, there's Manny out on the floor working. He's got somebody out there. I don't know if it was an assistant or maybe a grad student or whatever, was playing defense against him, and he was just out there working. The only guy on the floor was Manny Patterson.
Yeah, he puts in a lot of time, puts in a lot of work, and again, he cares. He's here for the right reasons, and he'll have success. I tell him all the time, like, he's going to have such a successful life outside of basketball, whether that's fatherhood, marriage, work, whatever the case may be. Whenever the ball stops bouncing for Manny, he's going to be successful in life because he's got substance.
So, as you recap the box score for this particular game, you mentioned that Nigel, early on, the shot wasn't dropping, and the old saying is shoot or shoot. Well, he didn't shoot. He started taking the ball to the basket. How much did you like to see that?
It was good because we need that. We can't just – we talked about it. We shot 33 threes, and I think we're a good three-point shooting team. And like as you said, when there's not a time really when guys shoot, I'm like, oh, there's no chance of going in. So I feel good about when we take good shots, even though maybe sometimes percentages don't show it or say it on the stat sheet. But to be able to get into the paint, you can't just be solely dependent upon that. Again, because if you go dry in that area, well, what else are you going to do? Because if that's all you got, you won't survive the rigors of a true season, especially when you get into league play. So what else can you do? What other tools can you have in your tool belt? And Nigel has that ability. He has the slashing and the driving ability, the ability to get to the foul line. So he doesn't need to be one of those guys where he takes half his shots or even more of half his shots from three. He's got more to his game, and we need more of that interior, especially if we're not getting a whole lot from our fives in the paint. Someone else has got to be able to get us some paint scores and be able to score within close range. It's a very simple game. If you dominate the paint, you dominate the free throw line. Now that court becomes even that much bigger. It's kind of similar to a zone. If you attack the zone, if you start out trying to go from the outside and then go inside, it's going to be a hard game for you. But if you go inside out, everything else opens up. And so even though he's not a post player, Nigel can get paint scores and foul lines touches, and now that opens everything else up for him. And now those shots will probably fall. But if you just come into a game, the first 4 shots you take are threes, hopefully
right.
They go in. But now if they don't, if you reverse engineer it, all right, I'm going to go get an offensive rebound putback. I'm going to go get a 2 feet in the paint layup. Now you make a 3, you're probably going to go 2 for 3 instead of starting out 0 for 4.
How much did you like to see that you had 40 paint points in the game?
It was good. I knew that we could get into the paint on them. I told the guys before the game, we could probably just go down and just space the floor out and just drop our head and just go drive and score. But again, that wasn't what we were trying to do. You know what I mean? We weren't trying. And again, I'm not trying to be disrespectful to Webster or thought that we were just that much better than Webster. It's like we needed to get better for us and for ourselves. And so now when you get into a game like Wednesday night or you get into a game at Moorhead, you're never going to be able to just drop your head and drive in there and score. So now what have we done? That was the point of these games and these practices in that week was what are we doing to get better for mid-January? What are we doing now to get ready for mid-February? And so that was kind of the main thought process going into everything. And sometimes it clicks, sometimes it doesn't click, but it was good to see us get paint touches and paint scores when we needed them because we didn't play particularly well, in my opinion.
In the Texas tournament, it was easy to really kind of drill down as to what happened in those games, and the free throw line is what happened in those particular games. So there was a game against Montana State. You were whistled for 31 personal fouls. In this game, They get to the free throw line 24 times. Your team commits 18 personal fouls. Were you okay with what you saw in terms of free throws and fouling? And because I know that has been a point of emphasis for you.
Yeah, it was better. But again, I think a lot of those were down because of the way that they played. And Evansville will be very similar in the sense that they really ran the clock down. You know, they were taking 15, 20 seconds off the shot clock, and then now they were getting into their action. So there weren't as many opportunities for us to foul. But I was more disappointed in the offensive rebounding, the way that we started the game, because then that allowed to either easy scores for them, or we fouled, or just were late to rotations because we just weren't engaged. And I think that plays into, as we started the show off with, was, well, it's just Webster. I can be a little bit lazy on the weak side.
Sure.
Now they're back cutting us and getting layups. And so maybe the fouls weren't as bad, but I think a part of it played in the way that they played and the pace in which they played. And then they were able to execute under 10 seconds in the shot clock. And then early in the game, they missed and get an offensive rebound, and now you got to do it again. And then they score. And then those types of plays become deflating, and then now you got to go down and score. So now a minute and a half has gone off the clock, and it's 2-2. And you've now lost a minute and a half of game time, and to where if we would have got that stop initially, our weak side awareness would have been there. We could have gotten transition a little bit more, I thought. And but to your original question, the fouling wasn't it wasn't as bad or as eye-popping as it had been in the past. But, again, I think that had a little bit to do with the style of play.
All right, we're going to talk with Chris Harris here coming up in just a moment. Give us a good Chris Harris story, Coach.
Oh, boy. Positive, negative?
Well, you choose.
No, you know what?
Or maybe even the first time you got to meet him after.
First time I got to meet him, it was actually him and Nana. They were in town when I finally got into town. I don't remember when it was because, again, you're just calling these guys, texting them and say, hey, just trying to establish a little bit of a relationship, get to meet you because you didn't get to do your typical in the locker room, hey, this is Coach, blah, 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 blah thing. And so I met them. They were in town. They just happened to be in town. And Chris was I think, getting textbooks because he was taking a summer class and doing an internship at the bank and all that type of stuff. So I met him over at Andy's. And actually, there was an Andy's in Springfield when I worked at Missouri State, and that was the first time we got introduced to Andy's. And I think I need to get some stock in Andy's as much as we spend over there. But met them.
I've actually eaten at the Andy's in Springfield. So
yeah. And so they had never really been there before, and so that kind of blew me away. But so we went over there, and that was the first time I met him and Nana was over at Andy's.
What's the frozen custard place up in St. Louis? The real popular. Ted Drew's. That's it.
Never had that.
Yeah. Well, Andy's, I think, is every bit as good as Ted
I've never even heard of that.
By the way, in your last game, I don't think you got to the wheel of Andy's number, so they didn't get free Andy's after the game. Just passing.
That was passed on to me by my daughters when I got home.
Okay, so you already knew that. All right, we're going to talk it over with Chris Harris. When we come back, it's the Red Hawks Coaches Show. We are in Jackson. This is SEMO ESPN.
Every consumer